Okay, so as most of you probably already know, and nobody thought to tell me, the second door is finally here. Tried to do it before, and it was locked. It's locked. Wow. Now it's this one that's locked. But I've been waiting for this for a long time. Apparently, it came out in July, but I had a lot of stuff going on then, so I didn't get a chance to do it. But now we have some time, and there's finally an update, so let's see it. Oh. A guide to funny faces. My eyes were burning. It felt like hot coals were lying on my eyelids. I slowly opened them and attempted to heave myself up from the cold asphalt, but I failed. My whole body was heavy, and my head felt like it was being squashed by a hydraulic press. That's the same intro of the last door. My eyes were burning. It felt like hot coals were lying on my eyelids. Wasn't it? After a few attempts, I finally succeeded and tried to make out where I was. The fog in my mind lifted slowly, and I realized that I was in a dark alleyway. This looks like the same thing. My vision was still blurry, and I had trouble keeping my eyes open, but I could tell that I had never seen this place before. Slowly, my heart began to race. Was I abducted? Mugged? What happened to me? I hastily checked my body, fortunately finding no wounds. Why was I feeling this weak then? Maybe I was drugged. As I tried to recall what might have happened to me, my eyes finally focused and I could see the house in front of me. In fact, it was the only house on the street with its lights on. The dirty yellow glow shone through every single visible window. I felt some relief knowing that the tenants were awake. Perhaps they could tell me where I was. I approached the front door. It took me some searching to find the doorbell through the overgrown ivy. A deep gong rang out from within the house when I pressed it. Sound amplified by the cold wind cutting through my shirt made me tense up. What an odd choice for a doorbell sound, I thought while rubbing my upper arm to warm myself. I waited. No one answered. My mind twisted in confusion. Why was no one coming? I rang the doorbell again. Then I tried knocking. No response. No one was coming. I didn't understand. Did they forget to turn off the lights and go on vacation? As a last resort, I tried turning the doorknob and it actually opened. This worried me. Did something happen to the family living here? Perhaps I should find a phone and call the police. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the street. My heart started to pound as my body tensed up. I wanted to dash into the house, but my feet refused to move. What was that sound? Was someone out here? Pictures of otherworldly monsters and armed kidnappers popped into my mind as my eyes scanned the darkness. The world was silent once more. I was still on edge, but my body slowly started to relax as I regained my composure. I decided I didn't want to find out what that was. Cautiously, I stepped through the threshold and firmly closed the door behind me. I felt an immediate lurch of guilt since I was trespassing into a stranger's home, but I'd rather face a police questioning than wander around a strange neighborhood in the middle of the night. Hello? Is anyone here? No answer. The house was eerily quiet. I cautiously ventured further down the front hall. Perhaps I could find a telephone. I stopped in front of one of the doors. A dim yellow light seeped silently through the bottom crack. I turned the knob. Locked. And then the next one. Also locked. They all seemed to be. I frowned. Why were the lights behind these locked doors lit? It gave me an uneasy feeling. The door at the very end of the hall was the only one that I hadn't tried yet. I grasped its handle and turned it slowly. It swung open to complete darkness. Once again, my body tensed up, while my mind started to conjure horrific images. A beast with dislocated limbs and crooked teeth creeping towards me in front of the darkness. A floor littered with corpses and walls stained with blood. A giant spider sitting in a corner, waiting for its chance to strike. My hands shook as I reached to flick the light on. It was an utterly ordinary bedroom. My heartbeat slowly calmed down as I realized that I had seemed to be safe. I felt almost silly getting scared of nothing. A quick search yielded nothing but barren, dusty shelves. The bed was the only meaningful object present. Slowly but surely, a wave of fatigue washed over me. With my adrenaline rush fading away, I found that I was more exhausted than I had realized. Like a worm worming its way into an apple, a single thought slowly invaded my mind. I had to sleep. Trying to fight it made it worse, as if some outside power was affecting me. Sleeping in a stranger's bed, in a stranger's home, was the last thing I wanted to do right now, but it was soon the only thing I could think of as my consciousness faded. I had to sleep. The world turned dark, and the soft covers of the bed pulled me deeper and deeper into the black abyss. I shot awake, panting heavily, my clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. My eyes darted around the room, but everything was quiet. I seemed to be safe. A nightmare. Seems like I just had a nightmare. I couldn't remember it anymore, but it must have been horrifying. Chills were still running down my spine. After calming down, I decided to take another look around the house. The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. A look out the window confirmed that it was still night. I must have either slept for a whole day or only a few hours, considering how tired I was. Must have been the later. So this is different then, because at this point of the first door, he had left the house and he was seeing people, but he woke up and it's still night here. Maybe it's like an alternative storyline. I left the bedroom to retry the doors just in case. They were still locked. I really wanted to go home and take a shower. I smelled my clothes, and they indeed started to smell slightly sour. This place seemed to have nothing left to offer. I'd be better off out in the streets, even if it was still dark, and I was missing my wallet. All I needed to do was find a police station. They'd definitely be able to help me out. As I wandered around, I grew more and more aware of how big this town is. The buildings were pretty high, and nature was rather scarce. But it was strange how empty the streets were, considering how many people must be living in this town. My ears began to pick up the subtle sounds of laughter. The sounds turned to uneasy in my empty stomach. It was awfully late for such a public crowd. There wasn't cheering or rounds of applause, just laughter, loud and obnoxious laughter that didn't seem to pause for breath, nor subside or grow. It became louder as I approached the town center, becoming a wave of commotion by what sounded to be a massive crowd. They just laughed and laughed. I kept laughing. It sounded dreadful. I was tempted to change course and avoid the town center. Yet this direction was my best bet for finding an inn or a police station. These priorities outweighed my sense of danger. I pressed on. The laughter was bellowing with hundreds of voices until finally I could glimpse the source of the commotion. The crowd gathered around a performer who was doing something to make them laugh. I strained to see the action, peeking through the small gaps in the people while keeping a safe distance. The group was just too dense. I couldn't see any details. Curiosity overwhelmed me, and I started pushing through the people. They seemed to melt away without paying me much attention. As I approached, I passed a table with books. I couldn't make out their title, but I could see something that resembled two masks on the cover. Paying it no mind, I pressed onward. I couldn't understand what was happening. The performer wasn't making any sounds. I couldn't make out any movement from beyond the crowd either. What was so entertaining? What I saw was the opposite of funny. It was horrifying. What was wrong with his head? He turned his hips so that everyone in the crowd could have a clear view, as if he didn't want anyone to miss it. Why are people laughing at this? A bystander heard me. I don't know, his face just seems so funny. I mean, look at it. I stared at him in disbelief. He and the others really did seem to find this funny. Were they seeing something I wasn't? No matter how I looked at it, it didn't seem like anything other than disturbing. I averted my gaze and walked away. I wanted nothing to do with this madness. While continuing to comb through the town center, while trying to keep my distance from the crowd, I noticed that the sun had already started to rise. And I still hadn't found anything that even vaguely resembled a police station. It's kind of creepy, isn't it? I was still reading. I had walked by a girl that was standing nearby. She was watching the crowd from a distance. Yeah, it is. I was glad to hear that someone else was thinking the same thing. An awkward pause followed. I was under the impression that she had wanted to start up a conversation, but I guess that wasn't the case. My stomach broke the silence. Are you hungry? Blood shot to my face. It was true that I was feeling starved. Swallowing my pride, I nodded. I have a sandwich with me. You can have it. Are you sure? No worries, I'm not hungry anyways. While I was embarrassed to accept her generosity, I was not embarrassed enough to refuse. I had to hold myself back not to lunge onto it, but I kept my cool and ate it, cautiously as not to embarrass myself. Some sort of strength returned to me. In the meanwhile, I decided to ask her about this town. Sorry, I don't really know my way around here that well. Oh, so you're not from here? No, not really. Maybe I could help you look. I'm feeling a bit uneasy being alone here anyways. I glanced back in the direction of the laughing crowd. Sure, I would really appreciate that. I'm Scott, by the way. I'm May. Nice to meet you. We set off to look for help. The idea to call someone I knew from May's phone came up, but she didn't have it on her, unfortunately. We approached several people to ask them for directions or to lend us their phones, but all of them seemed to ignore us. I tried to make some small talk with May every now and then, but her replies were always short and didn't leave much room for follow-ups. But she perked up when I asked her about her family. I have a sister. At first I thought that'd be all I'd get out of her, but she continued for a short pause. She's been home more recently. Usually she'd leave early and return late, or not return home at all for several days. Her job is really important, so it's understandable. But I was really happy when she told me that she wouldn't go to work for a while. I assumed she was finally able to request some time off. But she continued to work even at home. She's doing it to help people, and I'm proud of her, but I still wish we could hang out more. May hung her head. It seemed like I had touched on a sensitive topic. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Get off that. I thought of ways to console her or cheer her up, but I couldn't come up with anything to say. Since I didn't have any siblings, it was hard to relate. But it seemed like she really loved her sister. I could ironically relate more to May's sister. Just as her, I too have barely been home due to my work. And just like her, I likely still continue working even if I was home. But as opposed to May's sister, I didn't have anyone waiting for me back home. I decided against poking any further, and instead shifted my focus back to asking people for directions without much luck. Oddly enough, it was as if they were all going in the same direction, the town center. Do you think they're going to see that performer? Silence. Maybe she just hadn't heard me. I turned around to ask her again, but she was nowhere to be seen. Just as I finished that, though, I felt a pressure behind me. I slowly turned around. What the hell? What do you think? Do I look funny? What? No, get away from me. I took a few steps back, almost afraid the man would lunge at me, but he didn't. He just stood there with his distorted face. I see. Maybe I didn't do it quite right. And with that, he walked off, almost disappointed. He took a book out of his pocket and started flipping through it. Oh, that was fucking weird. For some weird reason, he seemed familiar. Was it the man in the laughing crowd that I had talked to earlier? This town was giving me the creeps. I needed to get out of here fast as I could. But as I turned around, I saw that most of the people walking by had distorted their faces in one way or another. It was as if a virus had spread while we were looking for help. Without a second thought, I hurried off. I tried to not look anyone in the eye. But wherever I went, those people were everywhere. On top of that, the town seemed to have no end, as I couldn't find a road that led out, no matter how long I searched. Just as I was wondering about what to do, I recognized someone standing by the side of the road. There you are, you had me worried. Oh, I'm sorry, I had something to take care of. It sounded oddly vague. But I didn't want to be rude, so I dropped it. She did give me a sandwich after all. Did you have any luck finding your way back home? No, still nothing. And on top of that, there are all these weird people walking around. Actually, I know someone who may be able to help. You do? Yes, they don't live far from here. How about I introduce you? Oh yeah, sure. Wasn't she new to this town? Maybe she met them while we were separated. I considered questioning her, but this was the only lead I had found so far. I didn't want to lose the chance. We arrived at an old, tall building. I watched May from the corner of my eye. Something seemed different about her. I couldn't quite place the reason why. Perhaps it was just my imagination. They live here, on the highest floor. The building is pretty old and not many people live there anymore, so it's a bit run down. I appreciate it if you went first. I didn't protest and led us into the structure. The building was quite desolate, just as she said. This place made me feel uneasy. I didn't want to stay here any longer than I had to. Not only was I afraid that everything would come down on our heads every minute now, I could only imagine what could lurk in these abandoned halls. I couldn't blame her for wanting me to go first. After climbing the set of stairs, May spoke up again. There should be the door at the end of this hall. I saw the door she was referring to. It was probably the only door in the entire building that wasn't damaged. The clean coat of paint was an airy contrast in the ravaged environment. And the one living there can help me out? No reply. I turned around and saw nothing. May was gone. Fucking bitch! She could have at least said goodbye. I walked up to the door to knock, but it was already open. Maybe I had the wrong door after all, yet May had seemed certain. Enter the apartment. Take a look around the building. Enter the apartment. Perhaps they forgot to lock the door, or May could have already notified them that we were coming and left the door open for us. I gave the door a soft push. Hello? No reply. It was a very small apartment. The door opened to the living room, which seemed to double as a bedroom. A single corridor led 2 or more rooms, probably the bathroom and kitchen. Just like the door itself, everything looked way too clean and tidy compared to the hallway outside. I didn't feel like breaking into a stranger's home, but they did leave the door open. Maybe they wanted to wait inside. I stepped through the door and peered through a window, hoping to spot this person that I was supposed to meet. The town looked normal from up here, but I knew that wasn't the case. Something was wrong with this place, and I was trapped here. Would I ever be able to return home? I had people who relied on me. Would my team at the lab manage without me? The only reason why I took on that project was so I could help them, and now I tore myself away from that window. It wasn't the time to think about that. What I should be concentrating on right now was finding a way out. I thought about what to do next. Stay here and wait, take a look around. Let's take a look around. Check the pictures. I took a look at the pictures hanging on the walls. Most of them were paintings and depicted in nature. Only a few of them were photographs. One with a note scribbled onto it caught my eye. It depicted a man and a woman having a picnic. The note said, Sabrina and Frederick, BFF. It seemed like one of them was living here, or maybe both. At the very least, I would now be able to recognize the tenant once I see them. Check the desk. The surface of the desk was crammed with beauty products, a single mirror standing amongst them. A small book was buried beneath the clutter. Check mirror. My own reflection peered back at me. I looked like I had aged a decade, the missing sleep really bringing me down, not to mention all these strange occurrences today. If I ever get out of this, I'll need a long vacation, I thought. Check the desk. Oh wait, I already checked the desk. Check the book. I moved the small bottles aside and picked up the book underneath. The cover depicted 2 masks. I flipped through it. It was apparently a guide to the most hilarious one that explained how to make funny faces. But the pictures in the book were more disturbing than humorous. One description of a technique caught my eye. The following can be risky, but if you're willing, you're destined to become a humorist. It requires the opposite of removing. You need to add. You search for those that are a disgrace to humor and take from them. I glanced at the picture beside the text and shook my head at disgust. I started skimming through it quickly, and sure enough, it was full of similar depictions. On the very last page, I came to a sudden stop. There was a key taped to it. Did the key come with the book, or did the owner of it hide it here? Oh well, it didn't matter to me anyway, since I didn't know what door the key was for. Suddenly I heard a sound outside the apartment. There was no time to place the book back under the bottle as I stuffed it into my pocket. I hastily slipped inside a closet and carefully pulled it shut. I wasn't sure why I was hiding, but I had an awful feeling in my gut. Finding a stranger standing in your apartment probably wouldn't be something someone would take in stride. Then again, finding one in your closet would be even worse. I watched through slits of the door as they entered the apartment through the halfway closed door. They stopped in the entryway and took a look around the room. Was this the tenant of the apartment? Shadows were obscuring parts of their body. I strained my eyes trying to see what they looked like, but what I saw made me cover my mouth to suppress a gasp. Oh my. The woman's face was ravaged. Fleshy chunks clung to her forehead. Were those face parts? Just forgot to close the door again. She spoke to herself as I moved as if nothing was wrong, but her face was horrendous. She walked up to the mirror. This looks much better, just like the one in the book. I should check the text again. I may have missed something. Oh no. I could feel the weight of the book in my pocket. I was sure I put it here. She rummaged the desk. What? Where is it? I know it was here. It was here. She cast the bottles from the desk to the ground. They shattered, spilling their sickly sweet-smelling contents across the carpet. The panic drained from her face. It's okay. You just need to buy a new one. It's completely fine. I'll just ask the most hilarious one if he has one left over. He has to. She scurried out of the apartment, leaving the door wide open. I remained frozen in the closet for a few more minutes. My heart slowly calmed itself. Once I was sure that she was really gone, I left the closet. I needed to get myself as far away from this building, and hopefully this town, as fast as possible as I could. As I was about to step out of the apartment, a sudden wave of fatigue came over me. It was as if I had stepped into a veil. The air had gotten heavier and my breathing became more ragged. I clutched my chest as I tried to figure out what was going on. A throbbing pain pulsed through my upper arm. It was as if something had stabbed me. I tried to turn around. I had already become too weak. My feet gave in and my vision darkened. I could feel a presence near me. The woman May. Before I could find out, my consciousness faded. You found key 2. Tell me that's not the end of it. Please. Alright, I guess that was it. That was, really interesting. I'm guessing I got stabbed with a needle at the end there. That was actually really good. I really enjoyed that. I wish there was more to this story, though. I wonder how long it's going to be till that third one opens. Because it's not open right now. But that was really good. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like and comment. I haven't found a good visual horror novel since this game, which was 6 months ago when I found this game, so I'm glad it had an update. If you know of any good visual horror novels, let me know in the comments, because I do like doing these videos. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have an amazing day.